What is up? Good evening. Good to be back home in the normal place for this. Thanks for everyone's patience with the mobile streams this week. I know it wasn't quite the same, but we still had some amazing conversations. And I'm so happy to be back home. And this feels a lot more comfortable for me in this place, doing it this way. Not too much to announce before we jump right into the calls. We are going to get into the calls quickly tonight, but I do want to mention that we are going to have a prank call live stream tomorrow. We didn't do it yesterday because I was traveling, and it's kind of a new format we're testing here on the channel. But we are going to do one tomorrow at 3 p.m. Central. That is 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. So don't miss that. Really looking forward to those prank calls. We got a bunch of good ones lined up. We are waiting for some people to come in. Phone lines are opening. We're going to get into the calls pretty quickly tonight. So if you've got your phones ready, go ahead and start dialing. It does take a little bit longer to get through our phone menu than it used to. It does no longer ring straight to the desk. It's a little bit more of a process, so now's a good time to get your phones ready. We're going to be taking calls for the next 2 hours until around midnight Central Time. And this is a place where we just hear stories from people who are going through all kinds of things. We never know. We have no idea who is going to call in. This is completely unfiltered, completely anonymous, ruthlessly anonymous, actually. So much so that I will toast you if you give up your name or location. That means I hang up on you if I toast you. And with that, we're going to take our first caller, diving right in. Here we go. Hi, thanks for calling.
Hi.
Hi. What you want to talk about?
So this is something that I've been more noticing, especially recently, but something I've lived with my whole life, where I don't feel like I'm connected to anyone that I've ever met. I've never made any sort of connection. I don't feel like I belong on this planet. And I don't mean that in a sort of like I want to die sense, but it's just like I just feel like I'm alienated from everyone that I've ever known.
What happened?
I don't think anything has happened in particular. I don't think I really understand other people, and I feel like I'm never understood. I'm never understanding them. Everything I do seems to just come out wrong, I guess.
Have you?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go. I'm still trying to understand the situation. Please share anything you feel comfortable sharing. Just no names, no locations.
No, I know that. I guess it might have to do with the fact that I have autism. I don't know if that's too much to say. I guess not. But I just feel like I've never understood anyone that I've ever talked to. I don't feel like mentally the thoughts that I have are just like alien to any other person. I've never felt like anyone has connected to me on some sort of like emotional level. Like I'm just a transient person that have walked into other people's lives and then I just walk out.
So you have an autism diagnosis?
Yeah.
And how long have you known that about yourself?
I didn't know that my whole life, but apparently I got it as a kid, and I just didn't have a good relationship with my mother, and she just never told me. She says she tried to tell me as a kid, and I refused to hear it, but with the relationship we have, I don't know if I believe that.
How old are you?
I'm 29.
Okay. Wow, well, that's a lot to be taken in at that age. I mean, 29, you're coming into your full adult self, of course, like you're an adult at age 18 if you live in the States. But,
Yeah.
I like to joke that Americans age mentally much more slowly than the rest of the world. So in America, I like to joke that you're not an adult till you're in your 30s. And I include myself in that camp. It's just a joke. I'm not insulted. There are exceptions to every rule, of course. But my point is that you're coming into
I get it.
You're coming into some formative years. Like you've got context for the world, and you've got context for adult life at your age now. No matter where you live or how you're raised, you're coming into your 30s is a transitional time, no matter where you live. And I can only speak from my own experience, of course, but I do believe that there's something special about coming into your 30s. It can be a really lonely time, even if you're, I have friends that are very average people that say the same thing. My point is that they're not, these people are not neurodiverse thinkers, and even people with quote normal brains, average brains, say the same thing, and I can relate with that. I think some of this is probably normal. They say that the older you get, the harder it is to make friends. It makes me wonder, like, do you have anyone? Do you have like even one or two close friends that
No.
I
mean, it's a hard question because, like, if you put a gun to my head and forced me to say, like, the most outright answer, I'd say I have friends, but because they look like friends on the outside, but they don't feel like friends on the inside. Does that make sense?
Yeah, they're giving you all the social cues, but there's no intimacy or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I've never felt like, I guess, intimate with anyone that I've ever known. I've been with people, I've hung out with people, I've had people that have been a regular in my life for years, but then one day it will just fade away, like it was nothing, and then it's just gone. But I don't have anyone that I feel like I'm close to that I truly feel like cares about me as a person.
Have you, do you know your score on the ASD quotient? Do you know where you fall, like, on the autism spectrum? I mean, you're holding a conversation here, so it's clear you're not nonverbal. It's clear you're low needs or high functioning, or however you'd put that. Do you know your score? Do you know where you fall on that?
I did, but I don't know it offhand.
Well, knowing that you're autistic is an advantage, because if you know that about yourself, then you can kind of, that's a different lens you can use to look at the world through. Like, if you know you're autistic, you know that you're seeing things and perceiving things differently than people around you are. Is that thought helpful to you, or does it, is it just that much worse, or what's that experience like for you?
I don't really know. Like, because it's like, I've only learned and come to, it's strange how readily I've accepted knowing that I have autism. I learned about it just like about a year and a half ago, and it's just like, my whole life I've known I was different. I wasn't understood by people. I struggle socially, and everything just seemed like difficult and confusing and from another planet to me. And I don't know if it was really a joke, but I used it as a joke where I was like, oh man, it's going to be so terrible if I learn I have autism, and then I find out I do, and I'm just like, oh, okay. I guess that makes sense.
So you were afraid of an autism diagnosis before you even knew you had autism?
Yeah, I got it diagnosed as a kid, and my mother told me, she says, oh, I always tried to tell you but we don't really have a great relationship, so we never talked about any deep stuff. And I guess because I was like a problem child, she just dropped trying to tell me that and just raised me how she could. I don't really know. It's hard for me to I don't have good memory with a lot of stuff anymore, and especially stuff like going back to teenager years. I've just pulled it all out. So I don't know. And I only tried to talk to her about how different and how much I struggle with everything recently because I'm getting old. I'm just trying to be like, I'm sick of everything being confusing. And she was like, well, you're autism. And I was like, what? And she's like, yeah, I told you. I don't know.
Well, you're not getting old. I know that in your 20s, I remember, maybe that's coming from an old person. I feel like that deserves some kind of acknowledgement. You're not an old person. In your 20s is kind of like this weird biological time bomb where when you're in your 20s and you're thinking like, well, I've got like 10 years in my 20s and then I'm old. And then the rest of your life, I would imagine, I'm in my 30s, so I can only imagine, but I'd imagine that each decade after that is just the same exact thing over and over again. It's like, okay, now I've got like 10 years till I'm out of my 30s. Then I've got 10 years till I'm out of my 40s. And my point is that I know a lot of 50 and 60-year-olds that are very youthful and energetic and look amazing. And in fact, like I was in LA this last week at a birthday party for this is a tangent, but it's related. I'm going somewhere with this. One of my dear friends, who's kind of like a honorary parent to me, turned 50 this week, and I went to LA for a birthday party for them. And their husband is in their 70s, and they had a kid at the same time I had a kid a few years back. And the point is that, like, you can be these people are very youthful people. Age is just a number. Like I'm not sure how big of a part of your call the age and the ticking biological clock is, but a reason. But you said that, and I just wanted to give you some hope that, like, even if I'm just a few years older than you, age is just a number. You don't need to freak out about age. And also, you're coming into a very formative season because of your age. It doesn't mean you're getting old. But the further you get into your 30s, your relationships will naturally change, and you will naturally be more careful who you spend your time with, and you'll be more scrutinizing over what constitutes a relationship. And that's just a natural part of getting older. So I'm not sure if what I'm saying is making sense, but I'm trying to say that, like, don't, on one hand, what I'm hearing sounds really natural, even outside of the autism, that you just get more scrutinizing over your friendships and who you spend your time with in your late 20s and early 30s. That's just something that happens because because you have more context for adult life, and because of the biological clock ticking and the awareness that time isn't forever. And so I'm trying to encourage you that, these things can take time. Relationships can take time, even without autism. And also I want to encourage you that the autism is a really special thing, that, you have a really special brain if you've got that diagnosis. Tell me about some of the things that you're passionate about. What excites you? What things do you think set you apart being autistic from your friends who are neurotypical? What kind of differences do you see? And what would you say is your comparative advantage? And don't be coy. I'm asking that to give you to spitball with you here. You called in for a reason. So yeah. I'm curious about some of those things.
I've been asked questions like that, but I'm honestly still just trying to, I guess, learn about it, because it's like I know that it definitely explains like a lot of the like social and other like connective issues I have with people. But as for what like sets me out, I'm not really sure exactly how to answer that question, except for like strange anecdotal jokes that are just like, oh, haha, he's weird. I mean, there's this one guy that I talk to. I don't really talk to anyone or hang out with anyone in person, and I guess that might be part of my isolation. Most of the people I talk to are just online. I don't like to go outside. But there's this guy that I talk to every now and then. I'll talk about how I like to travel and how I'm excited for, certain types of travel. And he like jokes about, oh, of course you have autism because you talk about how you think trains are so cool. And it's like, yeah, that's kind of funny. I'm not upset by it. I'm not hurt by it. It's kind of funny. But I mean, and that's really like the only thing that I know how to say, because it's like what sets me out or different. It's like, oh, I don't know. I could talk about how I think trains are really nice, but I really don't know. I'm still trying to learn it myself.
Well, the autism, I'm not trying to pretend the autism is not a variable, because it certainly will be a variable in your social life. And you may need to find some good autistic friends that, not to say that you can only be friends with autistic people,
right.
But you might need to spend some time. There may be a good support group for autism in your area. There may be, some Facebook groups or something like that, or even a Reddit forum. Reddit is a little more impersonal, obviously, but, I'm trying to think of ways where you could meet more people who think like you. Of course, the anonymous live server in Discord is becoming an increasingly better way to meet people who are in a similar boat as you. So I honestly don't know how, I wouldn't be able to tell you a number on what the community, what percentage of the community in the anonymous live server is autistic or experiencing some neurodiverse experience, but I know that they're in there because we get a lot of these calls are from people like you experiencing similar things. A lot of these calls have been people in their late 20s who are coming to terms with the fact that they're autistic and experiencing some kind of loneliness or alienation. And I'm saying that in hopes that it gives you some kind of sense of peace and calm, because, what is a relationship? A relationship is just two people relating. So, you might not be able to have as deep of a relationship with a neurotypical individual than you would with someone who sees the world a little bit more like you. I'm wondering, have you heard of this book we've talked about here on the stream before called Thinking in Pictures by Temple Grandin? Have you heard us talk about that book?
No, I've tuned in a few times, but I never stayed for whole streams. I haven't heard you talk about the book.
Okay. Do you know Temple Grandin?
I do not.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I'm about to send you on the best wormhole of at least this year for you. I'm pretty confident in saying that. I'm pretty sure that this is going to be your favorite, at least your favorite person of at least 2022. Temple Grandin. She is autistic. She is on Time magazine's list of top 100 most influential people of all time. She has an HBO movie about her life. It's not a documentary. It's a feature film starring Claire Danes. It's just called Temple Grandin. I don't know if you have HBO, but you can also you can get the movie on Apple Movies, or you can buy it. It's not just on HBO. But if you have HBO, it's free. I want to encourage you to watch that movie, Temple Grandin. It's spelled just like it sounds. Temple, Temple, Grandin, Grandin. And I want to encourage you to watch that movie first and foremost. It's an amazing movie. It's incredible entertainment, and it's an incredible story, a very real story of this historic. Temple Grandin is still alive, but she's become already this historic figure. And she has an amazing book called Thinking in Pictures about. It's part of like what it's part of a it's a memoir about what it's like being autistic for her own experience, but it lays out the different thinking styles. Some people think in pictures, some people think in terms of words, some people think in terms of math, some people think in terms of patterns. And she breaks all of that down in this book. She's brilliant. She's got multiple PhDs. She's an engineer, and she single-handedly changed the factory farming industry for the better. And a lot of places are still catching up to her work, obviously, because the factory farming industry is not perfect even still. But I'm going to put I'm going to put the link to her book in the chat for you. I think it might be good for you to read. It might give you it might inspire you. I think it might inspire you because Temple is someone who, she was also on my podcast. I don't know if you'd be interested in hearing a conversation I had with her. It's about an hour long, probably must be 5 or 6 years old now, but it was on my podcast Spellbound, where she talks about being autistic and the things she's accomplished. I'm trying to think of things that might give you hope. Since you're alone, you're feeling alienated, and you've got this diagnosis of autism. And I know that, I've known people in that position, and I'm aware how lonely that experience can be. So I'm trying to think of things that might, give you a little kick or, some inspiration. Do either of those things sound, will you check out either of those? Will you either check out the movie or the book or both, ideally?
I might read the book.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking at the book on Amazon.
Okay. Great book. And she's just an amazing person. I highly recommend you check out the movie too about her life. HBO made it. HBO is like, they're making the best movies out right now, in my opinion, in my humble opinion. If it's HBO, it's very high quality and trustworthy. So I'd encourage you to not forsake the movie just because it's a movie. It's a very, she stands by the movie. She was part of production, and she said, like, this was accurate to my life. And I think it could be a really helpful and inspiring story for you to watch because she grew up knowing she was autistic. She had a speech impediment from a young age, and she knew from a young age she was not normal. Her parents, her specific case of autism was so intense that her parents worried about her. And she has just funneled all of that into an amazing life of productivity, and she's an inspiration. So don't skimp out on the movie. She's amazing.
No, that sounds really interesting.
Mac Daddy from the chat says it's hard talking to people. I think that's true. Whether you're autistic or not, conversation is an art, and it's getting, one of my concerns is that it's becoming a lost art or a dying art because of how. Yeah. That's part of the reason we're doing this here, is just to, create places where people feel safe to call in and just talk about anything, and free of judgment.
Yeah, I don't know why it's so hard to talk to people, because it's like I've always known that I was different because I've had problems my whole life, and I don't know, I just thought I was stupid, and I guess I'm just trying to learn things recently now, but it just feels like things are getting harder. Talking with people, I don't want to do it. I don't like going. I pretty much don't go outside, like, ever. I get, like, groceries delivered. I don't like going outside because I feel like everyone is looking at me. I feel so, like, anxious. Even talking on the phone, like right now, I'm like, I'm like squirming and I feel disgusting.
Okay, interesting.
Part of me was hoping I'd get the voicemail, and now I'm like, oh, I'm talking.
Well, you're doing great for what it's worth. You've been very clear here. I'm enjoying the conversation. I want to recommend another individual who's been inspiring to me. It's funny, she's come up on the last 2 streams, Bella Ruth Napperstack. She has some amazing guided meditations that seems like they might be helpful for you. She has a lot of guided meditations for anxiety and social anxiety. She has one for anxiety and panic specifically that I'm looking at right now. I'm going to put this link in the chat for you as well. I'm not sure how much guided meditation you have experience with, but she's amazing.
None.
What's that?
I have no experience with any sort of meditation.
Okay, so yeah, I think I'm really glad you called in. This is I think this is going to be good stuff for you. She has a company called Health Journeys, and they do these guided meditation audio files. They're anywhere from $6 to $12 each, so you can't go listen to all of them unless you just want to spend a bunch of money. But they're all themed, so you can know what you're buying ahead of time, and they're anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour long. And like I said, they're very clear. I'm sending you a link now here in the chat, so if you go back to this part of the call in the stream, you'll see my link I'm putting in there for you. These are guided meditations I've used that have been really helpful for me, and they're all very they're all for very specific situations and use cases. So highly recommend you check out the work of Temple Grandin and Bella Ruth Naparstek for the guided meditation. I think might be very helpful for the social anxiety that you feel. You know, if you're beating yourself up because you said a second ago you feel stupid or you feel dumb. I can't remember exactly how you put it, but you know, if you're autistic, it's actually the opposite. Like it's I'm not discounting that it is a different experience, but you know, like we're born. Everyone is born with a certain amount of eggs in their basket. This is my opinion, but I mean, you know, this is the best I can do is my opinion here. I'm trying to give you some hope. You know, we're all born with a certain amount of eggs in our basket, and the basket is our brain. And you know, some of us have a higher propensity for relationships, and some of us have a higher propensity for problem solving, for example. And you know, autism has been proven time and time again to be a disorder that comes with some social costs. You know, people on the spectrum don't quite understand how, quote, normal people think or get along, but autistic people tend to be very productive and constructive to and astute problem solvers. And so some of this journey for you might be just learning how to use your brain, the brain you've been given. And I would say don't let that be a discouragement to you. Just, you know, I would say if that's something that's really frustrating you, maybe learn how to appreciate the experience you have and how to use that to the best, you know, the best that you can. And maybe don't, if you're struggling with thoughts of like, I'm not smart, or I can't get along with people, or I don't understand people, if those are the thoughts that are plaguing you, then, you know, maybe just, you know, it might take time to meet people that think like you do and that can relate with you and feel like true relationships. But, you know, maybe spend some time focusing on the things that you excel at. Spend some time focusing on the things that get you excited about life. They may be more problem-solving oriented kind of things. What kinds of things are you good at?
I don't know if I'm really good at anything. This is something else that I've always been frustrated with. I've never found something that I'm like, oh, this clicks with me, or I want to go do that again. Even like hobbies that, you know, a kid picks up and tends to stick with, like video games or stuff. It's like I don't really do a whole lot each day. I'll sit at home and I'll just stare at the wall. I'll try to play video games, but it's like I don't know how to word it, like chronic ennui, where I just don't do anything. I don't know what I'm good at. I've never felt like I'm good at anything.
Well, I don't believe that.
But then again, it's one of those things where, you know, I don't really try, so.
Well, now you're reminding me of a different book, and I don't want to overwhelm you with stuff, but, you know, you might have a cocktail of things going on. You know, again, you're at this pivotal age. You're coming into your 30s, and this is the time of life where you're going to be, you know, there's this quote, I can't remember who said this, I apologize, but it says, your 30s are spent discovering your gifts, and your 40s are spent discovering how to best implement them productively. and your 50s are spent discovering how that ultimately can be rewarding for you as an individual. In other words, like how that comes back to you spend your 30s and 40s giving to society and contributing to problems that need to be solved. And then your 50s are spent, and it's different for everybody. Of course, like some people never retire. Some people don't ever want to retire. I would consider myself in that camp. I'll probably never retire. I don't really want to. I would be depressed if I retired, is my sense. And then also, life is complicated. Some people can't retire, and then some people do retire. So it's a complicated calculus, of course. I'm not trying to make this oversimplified, but my point is that you spend on average, people spend their 30s and 40s contributing, and then their 50s is when that starts being recognized, and people in their lives, start reciprocating, and a lot of the contributions you've made come back to you in some sort of revelation or some sort of gift or some sort of acknowledgement of your contributions, and you start realizing that you start reaping the benefits of everything you've contributed in the prior 2 decades. So I'm not trying to overwhelm you. I'm just trying to if anything, I'm trying to encourage you that you've got time. You've got a lot of time. You're right on track, is what I'd say. And I don't want to overwhelm you, but I am thinking of this other book that is popular here, Atomic Habits by James Clear. Are you familiar with that book? It's a really popular book right now.
No.
Okay.
If pretty much if you try to mention any sort of like psychological or discovery or any type of book like that, I probably won't know it.
Okay, so Atomic Habits is a book I've recommended to dozens of callers here who have said the same thing you just said, which is that they're struggling figuring out how to apply themselves, or they don't know what they're good at, or they stare at the wall, or they get lost in video games. Atomic Habits is an amazing book, and there's a good audio book. I hope you'll read this. I mean, I want to make this a good call. I'm trying my best to recommend things here that I think would be applicable for you and relevant to this call. There's so much going on for you. You're autistic, you mentioned. You mentioned that you don't know what you're good at. You mentioned that you some sense of apathy or lethargy or lack of ability to apply yourself in a specific direction, to commit to a direction. So I've recommended 3 different things. I've recommended Atomic Habits by James Clear. This is a book that will walk you through step by step, like baby steps of applying yourself and forming, and it's not specific to any one type of person. This is a book that applies to anyone. It doesn't tell you precisely what to do, but it helps you kind of unlock a new way of thinking about how to apply yourself. That's why I'm recommending it. And then I've also recommended the work of Temple Grandin because you're autistic. I find her, she's one of my favorite people. She's one of the most inspiring people. She's up there with Steve Jobs for me personally, and I love Steve Jobs. So Temple Grandin is someone I'm really passionate about, her work. And then I've also recommended these guided meditations for the social anxiety, the work of Bella Ruth Naparstek. And I hope you'll check all 3 of those out, because I really feel strongly about those 3 suggestions.
Yeah, I'll look at that. Thank you.
And you'll have to spend a little bit of money to get them. I mean, each of these things will cost probably like $10 to get, but $30, it's a small price to pay for some new perspective, in my opinion. And these are all things I've purchased. These are all things I've purchased. Right. Yeah. Well, what else is there? What would make this a good call?
I mean, I don't want you to feel like it's not been a good call. I think I guess I don't know what I was expecting, if anything, out of it. Just call and say, feel heard, I guess. I don't know if that's stupid to say.
That's why we're doing this.
I don't know if, and this goes back to what I originally called about where I just don't feel like I've ever connected. I don't know if it's a good call. I don't know if what you're saying is good, and I just am so alienated socially that I can't understand how it's good. Because I feel like there's like part of me that you're understanding, but then I just don't feel understood, and I don't know if that's my fault or I don't know if that's your fault. And I don't want to say it's anyone's fault. It's how I've always felt, where no matter what comes out of my mouth at people, it just doesn't seem to hit.
Well, to be clear, I can't pretend, and I won't pretend to understand you fully on a 30-minute phone call here. I don't know you.
That's exactly what I'm trying to say. I don't want to make it sound like I'm upset. I don't know. It might be good. I don't know.
Yeah, I think, look, my friend, I don't know you, but all I can go off is what you tell me. And you've told me some very real and relatable things. All of these things you've mentioned are things that I can relate with. The chat can relate with these. The chat is lighting up with suggestions for you. In fact, I'm not even sure what to pull from the chat for you. I hope you'll go back and read them so that you can get a sense of what's been contributed there that's relevant and irrelevant. But my point is that if there's truth to what you're saying about the social anxiety, meditation is good for that. If there's truth to what you're saying about the lack of direction and motivation, a book can help with that. And the book I recommended, Atomic Habits, is one of the best books for that that's available right now. It's a modern book. It came out in the last 6 years. It's sold 1 million copies in that time. Wildly successful book. It's helped many people. And the work of Temple Grandin I recommended only because you mentioned you're having trouble relating with people due to autism. I don't know you, but I mean, if you're assuming you're being honest here, and I have no reason to believe you'd be dishonest about those. Those are three very specific things you shared here. So I have no reason to believe you're being dishonest. I mean, I sense that you're being genuine in sharing those things, and I don't know you fully, but you know, we do short phone calls here on this stream, and those 3 topics you mentioned, those are very relatable things. Those aren't complicated things. You are a complicated and sophisticated, I should say complex rather, not complicated. You're a complex, sophisticated, and unique individual. I can't know you in a 30-minute phone call. There's no way anyone could.
I was just trying to express this, like this is pretty much like the core of my frustration. I guess it's my existence, where I'm pretty sure that just about any person would say this is a good phone call, and I'm not trying to say it's not a good phone call, but it's just I'm not getting there. I'm not getting the satisfaction. It's like I just feel wrong. But it's like I understand everything that you told me, and I appreciate it, and I'm interested in looking at these books. So logically, it's hitting the check boxes of good phone call, but I don't reach that emotionally.
Yeah, I take no offense to that at all. No offense to that. I'm not looking for you to tell me this is a good phone call.
Yeah, always felt.
Yeah.
With everything. And it's frustrating. I hated it.
Yeah. Well, if you're autistic, you might not, that might be some kind of delayed reaction emotionally. You might not, in other words, you might not know what came out of this until you read the books and say, and try the meditation and say, wow, that was off base. Or maybe it's like, hey, actually that really helped. You won't, maybe because of the autism, you might not know until you practically try the things. And I'm not pressuring, I mean, I don't twist anyone's arm here to try the things that are recommended from the chat or me. And I'm not even remotely off-put by the suggestion that this might not be a helpful call. We've had some people call in and say that, I've had people hang up on me. So you're not hurting my feelings, just to be very clear. You can't hurt my feelings here. I'm doing this because I care about this work, and I care about this theme of communication and relationship and understanding. And these are themes that are important here to me. So I'm not doing this, my question about I want to make this a good call, or how can we make this a good call? It's just a standard question I ask. I'm not looking for you to tell me it was a good call, because you might not know for weeks from now.
I definitely, I don't know what's a good anything for me, really.
Right. I sense that. Yeah, I'm just being very clear. You can't hurt my feelings. That's a question I ask to kind of get to the root of why people are calling. And there's no pressure in that.
Yeah, and then I don't know if this goes with, I feel like there's a bunch of stuff wrong with me. I don't know if this goes with my autism, or I don't know, but there's always something I've always said about myself is I feel like a chameleon, because I feel like any person that I've ever met knows a completely different version of myself. I'm kind of trying to shorten. I have like this like Word document where I call it. I don't think I have schizophrenia, but I call it my schizo journal, just to appease my inner sense of humor, where I'll just think of something for 2 seconds and write it down. But sometimes I have really long stuff in there, and I don't want to give you like a 5 minute long paragraph dump, but I'm trying to like shorten it. And it's like I've always felt different with everyone that I've ever talked to or known, because it's like I try and blend in with other people. I don't really know what I am anymore.
You're you.
I guess, but it's like even now, the person that's talking to you right now is going to be so different from the person that talks to my mother, or the person, and I know that that's like obvious because people are going to have different relationships with other people, but I mean, like, based on people that I'll like talk to online or talk to in person, like I'll have like completely different personality, because it's like I think they call it mirroring or whatever. I do that, and I've done that my whole life. I do nothing but like I just mirror people. I have to act like they act. I got to do what they do. I'm like trying to blend in, like I'm some sort of secret agent, and everyone in the planet is a different species than me, and I gotta be the most normal I can be, or they're gonna get me.
Well, if that's the case, then I applaud you here for not mirroring me. You've been very, you've stood up for your experience here. I don't feel mirrored at all. There's a time and place for mirroring. Mirroring all the time is not healthy. Yeah. But I'm pointing out to you that here in this call, I don't feel you're mirroring me. I feel you've been very honest. I feel like you're being very genuine. And I wonder what stands in the way from you being authentic with other people, like you're being authentic here. Is it just because of the anonymity here that you feel safe to be yourself?
I don't know if it's that it's some sort of sense where I have to protect who I am, or that I feel safer around you. I think it is the anonymity, and I think it's also the transientness of the call, where it's just call, talk for a bit, and go. But I don't feel like I mask or mirror other people, because I don't feel like I can be myself. It's like I don't have an inner self, and I just act like them, because it's like, oh, this is how I can hang out with them. I don't feel like I'm hiding something from other people. I just don't feel like there's a core for me to be. I just do what others do. And I feel like whenever I'm talking to you right now, I'm being honest, and I'm trying to tell you how I felt or how I've been, but I don't feel like it's a sense of, oh, I feel safe enough to be genuine. I feel like I'm just trying to read a checklist so somebody can understand me. I feel like I'm talking about somebody else to a third party. That's what I feel like. I don't feel like I'm talking to, that's what I feel like. I don't feel like I'm talking about myself. I feel like I'm talking about a second person to a third person, but in like a logical checklist. I'm like moving around. I can't talk without moving. I'm like gesticulating like an idiot.
No, don't do that to yourself. Don't call yourself an idiot.
But I don't want to say that I'm like disassociating. I'm like, maybe this is disassociation. Crap, maybe this is. No, I don't think it is. I don't think it is.
No, listen.
But,
you're getting really heady. I'm gonna try to talk you back down to earth a little bit. My friend, you're on the autism spectrum. Your brain goes a lot faster than most people's, and we don't know everything about autism. You know, I certainly don't know everything about autism. But when I say we, I mean the scientific community itself doesn't even know everything there is to know about autism. The DSM criteria just changed recently, and they just, discontinued the use of the term Asperger's and all this stuff. We're constantly understanding these things better. Listen, your brain, one thing that we know for sure about autism is that your brain goes a lot faster than most people's. That can be a gift. It can be a gift. That's why I really want you to watch that movie called Temple Grandin, the movie about Temple Grandin's life. I think it would be I think that movie, like I'm telling you, please, I won't ask you to promise me, but I pray to God you watch that movie before you read the book or you read anything else. I pray that you watch that movie because it's an amazing, amazing movie. Temple Grandin is a brilliant.
No, I got this weekend to open up. I'll promise you, I'll go watch it.
Okay, because I can hear just hearing what you said in the last 5 minutes. I can tell you're getting really heady. Your head moves really quickly. It moves so quickly that you recognized you were talking about yourself like you weren't yourself. Like your brain moves so quickly that you, and it's not a bad thing. Like you're a very quick problem solver. That's what it means. It means you're a very quick, very efficient problem solver. It's not to say it moves too quick like in an ADHD kind of sense. You're very directed. Your brain moves very quick towards solutions. That's an amazing thing. And that's why I want you to watch that movie about Temple Grandin's life. She's an incredibly inspiring figure who's had to learn to harness that energy into something productive. And she changed the world single-handedly, all by herself, because she learned how to use her brain. She learned not only that her brain was different, but how she could use it to her own benefit and to the benefit of the world at large. And that's what I'm not trying to overwhelm you. I don't want to overwhelm you. I don't want to put you in a heady space, but I'm trying to encourage you that, it's okay if you don't know these things yet. It's okay if you don't, it's okay if you see yourself in a third person kind of way for now. It's okay if you don't know the kinds of things that you're passionate about yet. It's okay if you don't feel you relate with a lot of people yet. These things might take time. They might take more time than the world considers normal. But I guarantee you that if you're on the autism spectrum, you have some comparative advantage. You have some thing that you can do. In the simplest way I can say it, it's possible if you're on the autism spectrum, you might have some emotional intelligence deficit. That's possible. But that would come with some, if you're on the autism spectrum, that most likely comes with some trade-off of, this is that picture I was talking about earlier with, like, everyone is born with the same basket, and then the eggs get distributed differently in each basket. Some people are really good at relationships and emotions, and not so efficient problem solvers. And some people are born autistic on like the extreme opposite side of the spectrum. Some people are born autistic and have low emotional intelligence, but are incredible problem solvers. And you might be still trying to discover what problems interest you. You might not know that yet. That's okay, is what I'm saying. It'll take time.
Talking about the eggs in basket thing just makes me think of that '90s drugs commercial where that lady smashes eggs with a frying pan.
This is your brain on drugs?
Yeah. I was thinking about the name of that book, the Temple Grandin book, talk about thinking in pictures, and you talked about how people think differently, and that makes me think about how I think. I don't know what to call it. I call it like clusters, where I don't really have a single thought. It's like
Right.
I can have a sentence, and
Right.
one word of that sentence is going to make me think of something so totally different.
Right.
Where it's like this other like branching cluster of just thought explosions where I could look at a window and somehow that window is going to make me think of, I don't know, what's something completely different, like apples, because of like briefly related things where it's like, oh, I saw this window and that made me think of this. Well, now I'm thinking about apples, or I don't know how to explain this.
Well,
Yeah.
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. You're talking about most people have a thought. They think in singular thoughts. Most people think in terms of singular thoughts or ideas. You are describing the experience of thinking in terms of complex concepts. One thought triggers a massive equation of possible related concepts or possibilities, entanglements, and that's autism. That's what's beautiful about it. You know that movie, A Beautiful Mind? You ever seen that movie?
It's familiar.
Starring Russell
I'm
Crowe.
not sure.
He's
Oh, yeah.
based on a true story. He's that brilliant mathematician, and he ends up helping the CIA, I believe it is, to break all these codes and seeing all these patterns. And he lives with this, I believe he's got some schizophrenia or something like that. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but that's what you're making me think of. You know, that's what I hear you describing. You've got a beautiful mind.
Yeah. I don't know.
And everyone has those challenges. Everyone has
I don't know.
Everyone has different challenges. Some people grow, if you can picture the most average person possible, picture like the most average brain possible. Some of these people grow up not ever knowing what they want to do with their lives, not ever knowing what interests them, not ever knowing the kinds of things about themselves that you've described here. But they might make really good friends. They might find it really natural making friends with people, and they might have a really diverse social circle. They might have a really big social circle. You're describing something very different, but it's not a disadvantage. It's just a different advantage. You're describing the mind of someone who hears one concept and immediately sees a whole intricate picture in their head of, possibilities. And that's why I keep coming back to that term problem solving. That's what autistic people are really good at doing, is problem solving. Steve Jobs would have been on the autism spectrum if he hadn't died before the DSM criteria was revised. He would have been autistic. He was autistic. And look at all the problems that guy solved. He also had very few relationships. He burnt a lot of bridges, actually. A lot of people called him a dick. A lot of people thought he was mean. I wonder what kind of a different character he would have been if he had realized he was autistic. Maybe he would have heard that he was autistic, and that might have sent him on a different course than he actually had. Instead, he just heard what a dick he was his whole life. Instead, he just heard, and I wonder how much that reinforced that belief in himself. I think about that a lot. Like, I've read his biography by Walter Isaacson a few times, and it's an amazing book. If you haven't read that, amazing picture of one of the most influential people of all time who was autistic, arguably by modern standards, but he never knew it. All he heard was what a dick he was, and I wonder how much that reinforced that belief in himself. I wonder how much different things would have been for Steve Jobs if he had realized that he was autistic.
Yeah, I didn't really know that much about Steve Jobs.
Yeah, he's one of my heroes. I love Steve Jobs. I mean, he definitely did some questionable things, but again, like I wonder how much his social
Who
condition.
hasn't, really?
Yeah. I don't want to put you in a heady space. I'm happy to I've enjoyed the conversation and I'm happy to kick around these ideas, but I don't want to set you in this like heady space for the night. I want to encourage you that it's okay to be whatever you are. That's why we do this show. I believe that that people are okay the way they are, as long as they're geared towards progress and getting to know themselves better and applying themselves in productive ways and never giving up. And that's the theme of this stream. So, and there's no reason to believe otherwise. Find one. Send it to me. You won't find it. There's no reason to believe otherwise. That's why we do this. I mean, even a psychopath. A psychopath can. I've known psychopaths who've made progress. I'm not calling you a psychopath for the record. I'm trying to think of the most extreme case of someone that psychopaths take so much heat. I'm trying to think of like the most extreme case and think of somebody that, some people have a lot more work to do than others, and some of that work is not fair, of course. Being born autistic, and that I would count that as an example of that. Nobody wishes to be born autistic, but what I'm trying to tell you is that there are advantages to that. There are things that you can do that no one else can do, and I've given you some recommendations here on the call. Things like meditation. I love Bella Ruth Naparstek. Her work is amazing. That kind of stuff can help with your anxiety and your self-acceptance. The Temple Grandin work is amazing for anyone to watch, but especially for people on the spectrum, and especially her books. She's got more than just that one book, by the way. That book is probably her best-selling book, and it's amazing. I do hope you read it. But, I'm trying to recommend things here that seem relevant. I stand by every single suggestion I've made. I think if you check out Atomic Habits and Thinking in Pictures and the Temple Grandin movie and these guided meditations, my bet, I would bet you almost anything that if you try those for a month, if you watch those movies, read those books, try those meditations, I would almost bet you that if you call back in a month, you'll be in a much different place. And it might take time to figure out how you...
I'll have to check them out.
Yeah, I hope you do. And it might take time to figure out how you want to apply yourself. If you're still figuring out what problems interest you, professionally, how to apply yourself, that might take more time. That's okay.
Yeah, I really don't know. I know that I really like foreign languages, but I'm always afraid of it's so much. I struggle so much with putting in work on things. How do because it's like that's all learning languages is it's just effort. And I don't understand how people just sit down and grind on that.
My guess would be that you haven't found the right problem that interests you yet, because if you're on the spectrum, one of the things that comes along with being on the spectrum is the ability to focus on one thing for a lot longer than average, a lot longer than is considered average. Autism, it comes with, depending on where you are on the spectrum, autism comes with some kind of hyper focus where you can zero in on things longer than other people. Things that other people might consider mundane tasks. And my guess would be that if you haven't found that yet, you're still trying to figure out what kinds of problems interest you. And to that, I would say, be patient with yourself and realize that anything people do for money, anything people do that's considered work, where they're paid for, is an effort to solve some kind of problem. And you might still be trying to figure out what kind of problems interest you. That's what I mean by that when I say problems that interest you. If you're being paid for something, you're solving some kind of problem. And you might need some time to figure out what kind of problems you're drawn to. But I believe you'll find them, especially if you're on the spectrum.
Yeah, I hope so.
Check out Atomic Habits.
Atomic Habits?
That's right. And they're all in the chat for you.
Okay.
To recap, we've recommended Atomic Habits by James Clear, Thinking in Pictures by Temple Grandin, and Temple Grandin the movie by HBO, the movie about her life, which is amazing. I would start with that one. And then some guided meditations by Bella Ruth Naparstek, which will, I think, help with some self-acceptance and the social anxiety that you feel. And I think, this goes without saying, but, this is not a substitute for therapy, what we're doing here. I would encourage you to pursue some counseling. I'm not sure if you have that, but it can be invaluable. Please don't make this just a short call with us here tonight and then, and then stop. Counseling is it's monumental. Counseling's monumental.
Yeah. I've just been afraid of getting counseling. I don't know why. I mean, I know part of it isn't. I mean, this isn't playing into the fear. I just don't really have the money. But there's just some sort of fear I have toward it. I don't know if that's just my normal social aversion anxiety or something else. I don't know.
Yeah, counseling can be intimidating to get into. You might get some bad signals from your parents. Boomers are notoriously against therapy. They think it's a sign of weakness. All kinds of boomers. Boomers are largely against the idea of going to therapy. They think it's a ripoff. They think you're just like paying someone to talk about your feelings. None of that's true. Assuming you get a good therapist. You need a good therapist. Now a bad therapist is everything the boomers accuse therapy of. A bad therapist will just sit there and let you talk about your feelings and not give you any practical feedback. A good therapist will be qualified in dealing with autistic patients. In your case, a good therapist would look like someone who has experience and qualifications for dealing with autism. I don't have that, to be clear. That's why none of this is a substitute for therapy. We're just here talking. I'm like a friend that cares, basically. A therapist that's qualified to deal with autism would be monumental for you, and it might take time to find a good one. You might not like your first therapist you find. You might have to go through a few to find one that you click with. And also, therapists often have sliding scale rates for people who can't afford the full rate. For example, a good therapist might cost you $120 an hour, maybe more depending on the therapist. I've seen them as expensive as, a few $100s an hour depending on the criteria. But a lot of these therapists, almost all of them actually, have sliding scale rates for people with lower incomes. They won't not see you if they have openings, is the point. So don't give up on therapy, please. Like especially in your case, you've got a lot you're working through. I really want to know that you'll pursue some therapy.
I want to try. I do want to try.
Do some Googling tomorrow. Will you make tomorrow a productive day? Will you get into some of these books and do some Googling tomorrow about therapists in your area who specialize in autism?
I mean, I can definitely look into these books right now, but I don't know about looking at therapists in my area. I'm trying to move right now, so.
Okay. Well.
But I definitely want to look into more than just mental health. I also want to get some other sort of health where I'm looking at moving. So that's definitely something I'm interested in.
Okay. Most therapists will offer a 20-minute consultation for free. So you can talk on the phone with them first and hear their voice and ask them questions about how they would treat your situation. So you're not wasting money and time. Most of them will do that.
Yeah, I tried in the middle of the pandemic to try to get some therapy, and they made it seem like I was actually going to see somebody in person because I mean, ironically, considering the situation, the idea of just talking to somebody on the phone sounds terrible. but therapy is different than having a conversation with somebody who just wants to listen. And the thought of just having a therapist over the phone sounds like alienating, and I wanted to talk to somebody in person, and I went up there, and it was just, they let me use their phone, and all they did was immediately try to put me on some drugs, and I was just like, no, I don't want to do that, and I just left. I felt like a cog in a machine. Even worse than my heart, too.
Yeah, therapy is better in person, ideally. Some telehealth options can be good, but therapy by phone, I wouldn't recommend unless it's a therapist you already have a relationship with and it's some kind of one-time, two-time thing. You know, like sometimes I've done therapy by phone, but never unless I knew the person and already had a relationship with them. Man, you're in the middle of a lot. You're coming into your 30s. You're dealing with this autism diagnosis. You're feeling alienated from friends. You aren't quite sure how to apply yourself professionally, what problems interest you. I've done all I know to do to, with this time on the call here, to make some recommendations of some first steps you could make to try to tackle some of these things. I feel the best thing we can do now is wind this down, but I want to encourage you to call back and update us on how things are going. Also, join our Discord. You know, that's a great place to keep us updated on how things are going. Please don't reveal your identity here as a caller, but you can go in there and feel free to share anything you want about what you're going through, and know that that's a welcoming community. It's totally free. People are there for a reason. They want to connect with people that want to talk about real things, not just sports or weather. So it's a good place. It's such an amazing community that's being that place is becoming. So I'd encourage you to go there and to call back here after you've taken some of these steps and read some of these books, and let us know how things are going.
Yeah, okay. I think I'd like to do that.
Great. Well, I'm wishing you luck on the move, and I hope you enjoy those books I recommended and that movie. Please check out the movie. Don't forsake the movie. I know you were kind of reluctant to that, but I really hope you like all that stuff. I think it's going to be inspiring for you.
I promise you I'll watch it tomorrow.
Great. All right. I think that's going to help. I think that's going to be a good first couple steps for you. I feel good about everything we've talked about tonight. Thanks so much for sharing and for calling and using this space in the way that you have. And I'm wishing you the best.
Can I just say that I want to thank you for being so. I'm not good at verbal stuff, so this is gonna suck. But just let me try this. I just want to thank you for being so genuine and kind. I'm not really good at dealing with like actually nice people. I always feel like everyone has some sort of ulterior motive and they're like shadowy. But you just want to listen, and I really appreciate it. And I want to try and bring more niceness into the world. So I'm just trying. I'm not good at verbal compliments.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're very kind. I appreciate it. We're doing this for a reason. It's nothing personal. We believe that people like you are everywhere, and that people need some encouragement and maybe some initial first steps to start a new trajectory. And I hope we've given you that tonight. And I'm hoping for a good update from you.
I'm really hoping that something from tonight sets me on a good journey. I'm really hoping.
Well, I'm looking forward to an update of some kind. Call back again anytime and take care of yourself.
Yeah. Thank you. I hope to tell you about all the good news in the future.
I can't wait to hear it. Good night.
You have a good night.
Amazing. Amazing experiences. I can't believe every single one of these calls is so different. Gonna get right into the next one. Hi, thanks for calling.
Hello?
Hi, thanks for calling.
Thank you.
Can we start with your age?
This is where I give my... What's up?
Can we start with your age? I forgot to ask that on the last call.
I am 21 years old, and I'm calling to talk about kind of a journey between the difference of confidence and arrogance.
Okay. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
So basically, it's kind of something I'm just, I guess I'd say, grappling with at this moment. I've basically been competing in sports, wrestling for most of my life. I haven't really been that good at it, but it got me into jiu-jitsu and now amateur MMA. And I guess something that I've always struggled with throughout my years competing is, I guess, believing in myself and I guess I always use it as an excuse to not have such a great confidence in myself, because I always felt that there was a line that I was towing where it would turn into arrogance. And I guess I was just kind of wondering how you possibly dealt with kind of the difference between the two, and if you had any advice.
Yeah. Well, confidence is something that you're asking one person, but I would say, like, you can't live without confidence. If you don't have confidence, then, how do you wake up every day and apply yourself? If you don't feel good about how you're applying yourself, you gotta have, I would say arrogance is a disorder of confidence. It's an imbalance. It's an imbalance of confidence. Like, I can wake up and know that. So I'll put it this way. Actually, I don't know if this will seem relevant, but it's making me think of a story. I used to be really into pour over coffee, so much so that I don't know what you know about pour over coffee, but it's all about getting the pour to last a specific amount of time so that you're not burning the coffee, you're not over extracting the coffee. So for a long time, I got really into this. I wanted to make perfect pour over coffee. And so one of the things I realized I had to do was to track the humidity each day, because the grind for the coffee would depend on the humidity in the air outside. So, and it wasn't enough to know the humidity today, because the coffee beans would be containing the humidity from yesterday as well. So I got to the point where, I'm going somewhere with this, by the way, this isn't just a random tangent about coffee. It got to the point where, I did this for years, got to the point where I wanted to make perfect coffee every morning with zero margin for error. So I would track the humidity every freaking day. I would track it, and I would write it down in a little coffee journal I had. I would track yesterday's humidity, today's humidity, and the forecast of humidity for tomorrow. And I would make my coffee grind size according to that forecast. And I got so good at making coffee that I literally made perfect coffee for years, for like 3 years. And then I had kids, and I lost the ability to spend that kind of time on coffee, so I gave it all up. But the point is that, like, I got really confident at making coffee. I would wake up every morning. I had absolute confidence every morning that I could make coffee. I knew every morning I would get that perfect pour. It's a stark difference between wanting to do something for the love of it and the confidence of it versus, if you go into one of these, like, snooty coffee shops. I don't know if there's a coffee shop like this in your area, but there's all these fancy coffee shops now where, like, if you ask for cream in your coffee, they, like, give you the stink eye, like, what, you want cream in your coffee? Like, don't you realize our coffee is so perfect you don't need cream? There's all these snooty coffee shops popping up. There's a stark difference between, like, wanting to do something for the love of it and having confidence that you will be able to execute that in the way you need to, versus, like, the arrogance of, this is a very poor example. The further I'm going into this, I'm realizing it's a poor example, but it still works. Like, some of these coffee shops you go into, they're very arrogant. They treat you very arrogantly, like you're lesser than because you've asked for cream or you've asked for the wrong thing, and they're like, well, you didn't ask for the wrong thing. Like, the point is that, like, it's a good, like, it is a fine line between confidence and arrogance, but I think it's an attitude thing, and I think arrogance is ultimately just some kind of imbalance or disorder of confidence. But we need confidence, because without confidence we can't take action. We can't trust that it's worth taking action. And I'm trusting that, since you mentioned you're an MMA kind of guy, it seems like that analogy would make sense.
Yeah, it definitely did. I definitely understand what you're saying. I guess just what I've always struggled with, I mean, I'm kind of an anxious person, kind of overthink a lot of things. So I think where I really get myself into trouble is where I may dedicate or almost over expand the idea in my mind, and then I'll get to the point where it's like, well, I can't be confident in myself if like I don't do X, Y, and Z, and like if this doesn't go perfect and things like that. And I think because I actually do have a fight coming up, so that's kind of why I've been grappling with this idea a little bit more. You know, I'm putting in the work that I need to do. I'm, you know, training the way I need to train. It's still just, you know, that little nagging part of my mind that's like, well, what if I get overconfident, you know, and I get myself knocked out? Or what if I'm not confident enough and, you know, I go in there and just let this guy walk all over me type thing. It's just kind of, there's always that little back of my mind kind of thing that's nagging at me, if that makes any sense.
Well, I don't know how helpful I can be with MMA specifically, but I can only equate it to things that I have been trained in, like making coffee, and you know, I could equate it to some professional things too. I have never made coffee professionally. I thought it was a fun example, but you know, I'm also thinking about like, you know, like anything we do for money or an extracurricular activity requires some kind of belief that you are the best person for the job. And in other words, in the context of an MMA fight, believing that it's justified for you to be there in that fight. It's not, I don't think confidence can guarantee you that you'll win, but confidence can guarantee you that you are worthy to be in that fight. Something like that. That's what I would say.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And I understand what you mean. Like, it's hard to equate, you know, maybe professional things and things like that. But I feel like the analogies you've been giving, they definitely make sense. I'm just more, I guess what I was more looking for, just to kind of chat about, was kind of towing the line between the difference of confidence and arrogance, and just kind of the issues I've had with it in general. I feel like I've almost, in my past athletic situations, I've almost kind of shot myself in the foot with it a little bit, to where I didn't want to be confident in myself at all. So like, not believing in myself, you know, can't really, in anything, you can't achieve the best of your ability if you don't really believe in yourself. And so I think now that I'm actually getting some sort of progress in my athletic endeavors, well, any endeavors in general, you know, like both school and things like that, now that I'm getting more and more progress in those situations, it's almost like I haven't prepared myself for the success, I guess, mentally. So I'm not used to really, not like I fail all the time, but I'm not used to like getting to where I want to be. Like I've actually, weight loss was a big thing I grappled with for a long time. I've now finally, so far, lost about 80 pounds. And so now that like I've gotten almost to like the top of the proverbial hill that I was looking at originally, it's like, okay, now where do I kind of go from here? How do I, you know, kind of keep the show rolling? How do I keep believing in myself to achieve even further? I guess is kind of what it's turning into now.
Yeah, I'd say,
if that makes sense.
I'd say focus on your strengths and what sets you apart from other individuals. You know, again, like I'm not sure if this is specifically pertaining to mixed martial arts. I don't know how helpful I could be with that experience, but I know that this is applicable to any scenario, mixed martial arts or otherwise. I would say focus on what sets you apart, your comparative advantage, what excites you about the things you're involved with, and why it is that you deserve to be there. It's a fine line between that and arrogance. So this is actually, I'm going to highlight something from Offcore. One of our mods in the chat says to you, arrogance means you would underestimate your opponents. So keep focus on your strengths. That is not arrogant. Yes. And that's kind of what I'm getting at. I think that's good advice. And there's something else I want to highlight. This is a great quote. This comes from Worthless Animations. They say, Miyamoto Musashi describes the perfect confidence as like the reflection of a moon on the lake, which I think is a beautiful picture.
Okay.
Does that make
Yeah.
sense? I
That
think it's a
makes
beautiful
sense.
picture. It's
Yeah,
like
definitely.
you are not the things you are. You're a reflection of the things that you are. In other words, like the things that you are come from something you can't control. It comes from what you're born into and the genes you were given, and you can't control those
Mhm.
things. So the best confidence is it comes from a picture of a reflection of those things, not that not that
Mhm.
uh, not that you are in control of all those things, but that you have been given a
Mhm.
reflection of them. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does for sure. And kind of something. It's kind of funny. I had just recently had an experience with I would say a very prominent fighter. I was actually at a fight for one of my coach's fights, and I had a conversation with one of the better fighters at the event, and they actually said something very similar to me. And it's kind of I found it's ringing true, and hopefully this could be helpful for anybody listening. I really appreciate you guys giving me this time, but like you said, focus on what you can control, and I think that's something I'll definitely have to continue. I think that will help me with my overthinking a lot because I definitely tend to overthink on things, like I said, that I can't even control. But if I focus, like you said, on what sets me apart, then I don't need to worry. Like the other person said in the chat, don't underestimate my opponent.
Right.
Focus on what makes me strong and focus on those. I guess that's definitely extremely helpful and something that I think I'm going to have to continue to shift my mindset for, and it's only going to be beneficial for me to do so.
Great. I'm glad to hear it. It's a great question. The line between confidence and arrogance. I appreciate you sharing and asking the question, and I'm wishing
Yeah,
you the best. And feel free to call again anytime.
yeah, I appreciate you giving me the time of day, and I'll try to call after my fight and let you guys know how it goes.
All right. Take care. Good night.
Yeah, have a good rest of your night.
Fascinating question. Okay, lines are opening again. Hi, thanks for calling.
Hello.
Hi. Can we start with your age?
Yeah, I'm 21.
All right. The floor is yours. What do you want to talk about?
Um, well, I've been struggling with alcohol.
Okay. What drove you to the alcohol?
My parents, they drink on a pretty regular basis, every night, and so I guess it started in high school, and I don't know, it just kind of became I thought it was okay to do, and so I didn't think of it as a bad thing, but now I'm struggling to quit now.
I see. How much are you drinking?
Uh, 8 or 9 beers per night.
Okay. Do your parents know you're struggling with this, or do they care, or have you talked to them?
Yeah, yeah, they do. I'm in therapy right now for it too.
So was there some kind of impetus for this, or was it simply that you watched your parents drinking regularly and you thought it was just what grown-ups do, or what did something happen that you were using the alcohol to mask, or what was it?
Yeah, I think it was. I think it started out as just seeing them do it and kind of thinking, it was okay. And then it turned into a habit that became an issue now. Nothing really, sparked it.
How do you feel the morning after having 8 or 9 beers?
Yeah, pretty rough. And having a job to go to is it it sometimes interferes, not all the time, but like this morning it did. I felt pretty bad, and I could definitely tell that it was affecting my clarity and my ability to like think and communicate effectively.
How long have you been in the therapy for this?
Well, I started the therapy. I've had 2 so far, so it's with an online thing. It's not in person, but we do like Zoom calls. And so, like I said, I've had 2 sessions with her so far.
Do you think you've got it within you to, I mean, alcohol's an addiction. That's why this is a question, not a statement. Answer honestly. Do you think you have it in you to acknowledge that your mornings are more important than your evenings after work? And maybe, I guess, in tandem with that, as a follow-up question, like, have you tried visualizing your evenings as an extension of your mornings in some way? I don't know if that makes sense what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I don't really understand.
Like, you
But
get
yeah,
off.
I think go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, you go. You go. This is your floor.
Yeah, well, I guess it like I said, it doesn't really happen too often where my mornings are like affected from the night before. Many times, like I just go on my day as normal, but yeah, like this morning, my brain was really foggy from the hangover, and so it today has been pretty stressful because I know that a person, you can't continue to do this. You can't continue to drink like this on a regular basis, because it's just not healthy, and so that gives me anxiety.
Categorical from the chat says to you, don't quit, replace it with something. That's a common idea. I'm not sure if your therapist has suggested that yet, but the idea of you're not quitting anything, you're not quitting the ritual of winding down at the end of the night, you're not quitting the ritual of giving yourself a nice evening, but changing the terms of that and what that looks like. Is there something else you can think of that you'd enjoy swapping that out for?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I really enjoy being outdoors and hunting and fishing and that kind of stuff. But I also enjoy working on my car. But
Okay.
it's hard for me to think of something that I can replace it with, to wind down, because I just can't think of anything off the top of my head that I could replace it with. The ritual pretty much. So me and my dad work at the same place, and my mom doesn't work. So the ritual for me and my dad is to go to work at 9 and come back around 5 or 6, and then and then we sit in the living room and watch TV until around 9 or 10. And like I said, both of my parents drink casually. And so it's just, I don't know, that's what we've done for 5 or 6 years now, since high school. And so, I don't know, it's hard for me to think of something that could replace it.
So you mentioned you don't feel very good after having 8 or 9 beers the next morning. But then my follow-up question didn't quite land. So I'm wondering, are you always drinking that many beers, or is it that you only sometimes have hangovers? My question was kind of getting at prioritizing your mornings and how you feel in the mornings. I'm not sure how relevant that was, or how much you're drinking, or how often you're drinking 9 beers. Can you tell us a bit more about what is causing you to want to stop drinking? Because, some people have one drink, maybe 2 sometimes, and it's not a problem, and other people can't regulate it, and they are having they're having 8 or 9 drinks a night. And I guess I'm struggling to understand what your impetus was for this change.
Well, I just worry about my health, really, is the biggest thing that stresses me out.
Are you drinking that much every night?
Well, it's sometimes more. It's sometimes, sometimes it's more, but I think what I've been thinking in my head is that it helps me fall asleep, and like the nights when I decide that I'm not going to drink, I have a really hard time falling asleep, and just thoughts racing through my brain. And so it's like the easier option is just to drink, and that will help me fall asleep. But at the same time, I know that like it's not healthy for me at all, and I worry about my health and what I'm doing to myself, because alcohol is it's a poison. Obviously, our bodies are not made to handle it.
Well, it's a horrible sleep. It might help you pass out, but you're not actually getting sleep, especially if you're drinking that much. If you're drinking right before bed, that's not sleep, air quotes, that you're getting. Your REM sleep is completely disrupted by alcohol. So I'm just challenging the notion that it helps you sleep. And I'm not arguing with you. I'm trying to give you helpful thoughts that you might already know, admittedly. I don't know if you've heard that before, but it doesn't help you sleep. It actually inhibits sleep.
Right.
And that might be where a lot of the communication is coming from. You mentioned your brain is foggy and your communication isn't clear. I would venture to guess that a lot of that's coming from the fact that you're not getting good REM sleep because of all the alcohol. I mean, yeah, maybe you're waking up kind of drunk if you're having that much, maybe. But alcohol is really just hard on your liver. Mostly it's hard on your liver, and it keeps you from hitting REM sleep. So if you're waking up exhausted, and again, I'm not arguing with you. I'm just trying to, you called in, and I'm trying to present ways of thinking of this that sound a bit different from what I'm hearing. But I don't know how much of this you've already heard. I don't want to repeat stuff you've already heard. Is any of this helpful? Food for thought, or?
No, yeah, definitely. I just, I don't know. It's good to talk to somebody. Yeah, it is. It is helpful. It's just, it's hard to communicate, even with close friends or my brother, even, that this is a challenge for me. And it's something that I'm dealing with, and it's just good to be able to kind of express my thoughts,
Yeah. Amari from the chat is suggesting melatonin. It's a great suggestion if you're just wanting to sleep. Now, it might not just be sleep you're after. Maybe you're after a little bit of like cut loose time after work. You want to just cut loose, and maybe, I know that's a large reason most people drink. It's an attractive reason to drink, but you haven't said that. You've mainly said sleep. So melatonin or even valerian root. I actually prefer valerian root. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those, but they're natural plant-based sleep aids that are not abrasive. They're healthy. You don't want to use them every night, but you can use them for, up to a month or so. I would definitely do your own research on that, depending on if you're on other medications. Right now, the time frame of use can be different, but most people use melatonin or valerian root for 3 to 4 weeks to create new sleep patterns, and it can help them break all kinds of habits like drinking alcohol to fall asleep. Have you heard of melatonin or valerian root? Have you tried those?
I've definitely heard of melatonin, but I've never heard of valerian. How do you spell that?
Valerian root. Now, I will caution you with valerian root. It tastes horrible. You don't want to just go maybe if you're super crunchy, you might be able to stomach it, but I would recommend going and getting it in encapsulated form in a pill. It's got a very gross aftertaste, so I would not go chew on some valerian root. I would get it in a pill. But I've used valerian root before. I've also used melatonin. Valerian root knocks me the hell out. It just knocks me out. And again, you don't want to use these in perpetuity. They're meant to kind of create new sleep patterns if you're struggling with falling asleep.
Sure.
Very, very helpful and healthy as long as you don't use them for longer than 3 to 4 weeks, again, and do your own research. Because if you're on meds, or if you're on other meds, the time frame of use might be different, but usually 3 to 4 weeks. And it can be great for creating new sleep patterns. And there's other things you can do for cutting loose and having fun that are a lot healthier than alcohol. All kinds of things. So I wonder how much of this is stuff you're doing to cut loose, and how much of the alcohol is because you want to sleep.
Yeah, I think it's not that, whenever I get off work, it's like, oh, I want to have a drink to like relax. You know what I mean? Like it's like I said, it's just like a habit. And so like around 7 o'clock, it's like, okay, like we'll start winding down and have a few. It's not really like, I don't know if I'm answering your question, but
It sounds like it's both.
What's that?
Sounds like it's a little bit of both. You want to cut loose and relax, and you want to have something help you feel sleepy.
Yeah. I think that's pretty accurate.
Garfield Arbuckle asks you, what about your personal life? Is there something environmental that brings you to drink?
I worry a little bit about my career. So I'm a senior in college. I'll be graduating in December. And, I have a pretty general idea of what I want to do. And my dad has kind of helped guide me to like what I'll end up doing out of college. But it's for me, it's like he's kind of making this plan for me. And I'm a very self-driven person. And so to me, I don't really understand completely what he wants me to do. And so like, for me, it's like not I'm not like fully behind it yet.
Hmm.
And so that I don't have a drive to do that. I'm a very driven person. And so that is one thing that, kind of stresses me out. But
What is it your dad wants to do, or is that the mystery?
well, the goal my dad has for me, or what my dad, has kind of laid out for me is, my dad, he owns an insurance agency, and that's where I'm working this summer. And so I'm selling insurance. So what he, has in mind for me is to open up my own agency and then eventually sell it. And I would sell it for quite a large scale of money from what he says, but that's the plan he has for me.
And it doesn't sound like you're too excited about that.
Yeah, like I said, I'm very, very self-driven. I've been selling insurance for the past 2 summers, and I was very interested in real estate the last 2 summers, and so I decided to purchase a rental property, and so I did that, and everything is going smoothly there, but the for me it was like you work, and you have a goal. For me, the end goal was purchase a house to rent out. And so I worked, and I finally was able to do that, and I did it. And then, but now it's just like it's over, and like it's honestly pretty boring because like I don't have any issues with the house. Like there's no, like it's not something I have to deal with every single day, and so it's just kind of like an afterthought. And so like I've been missing that goal, or that's something that I'm working towards, and so I feel like that's something else that has been stressing me out. Like I don't have something that I'm working towards right now, and like I'm the kind of person that needs that.
Well, maybe you can keep, if you don't want to have your own insurance agency, maybe you can keep working for your dad's company while you figure out what it is you do want to do with your life. You're very young. You got time to figure these things out. You're 21. So, it sounds like maybe you're under some pressure from your parents to jump into something really quick of your own. There might be something to say about carrying on with your dad's business for a little while you figure out what it is that you want to spend your life doing. I mean, if you're going to start a business, the idea is that you spend most of your life working towards the goal of growing that business, that specific business, or maybe in some people are known for running a few different businesses in their lifetime, but most people, most people end up working in one career field, or they start one business, and that's what their life is known for, and that can be a good life, but not a good life if it's something you're not passionate about or don't believe in. So again, because you're so young, maybe it makes sense to just, I wonder what it would look like to level with your dad and say, look, like, I don't want to start my own business selling insurance. You mentioned you're a driven person, maybe something like, Dad, I don't want to start my own insurance agency, but I'm so glad that I can work for yours while I'm getting my feet up from underneath me. And I'd like to keep working with you while I take the next few to several years figuring out what it is I'm going to do with my life. I wonder how you think that kind of conversation would go. How would you feel if that...
I think it would go.
Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would go over well.
Okay.
My dad's a very young person, so.
Do you think that that kind of understanding might help with the pressure you feel that is leading you to drink? Let me put it another way. Do you think if you had that freedom with your dad, your evenings could be more exciting, spent researching your interests or creating new hobbies or working towards training yourself for the problems it is that you want to be known for solving? I mean, it's a lot of work, but you're young and you've got that energy, and that's what your 20s are about. Your early 20s are about working your ass off and carving out a niche. So, I'm always saying on this show here that your 20s don't get enough credit because so much goes into your 20s. You're working a job, you're being trained, you're in school, you're thinking about what it is you're going to do with the rest of your life, and it's like you're juggling all these plates. But you've got this support of your parents, and I wonder how it might feel for you if you were coming home from work each night and instead of drinking all night, you were funneling your nights into the free time you have in your evenings to thinking about your future and what it is that you want to be known for. Does that sound exciting?
Yeah, yeah, it does, and kind of answers your question, or the guy in the chat. If we could replace it with something, that
Right.
seems like a good replacement to to drinking, is figuring out and kind of diving deeper into what it is that I'll do.
Right. And not everyone's the same. Some people some people say like, I used to be an alcoholic and I'll always be an alcoholic. And some people say, I drank a lot because I was under a specific pressure. And once that pressure lifted, I didn't really have the desire to drink. I mean, people are different. Everybody has different experiences. My point is, I'm trying to give you some hope for giving up the drinking. Like if it's a struggle for you to give up the drinking because it seems like, oh, well, that doesn't sound fun, or that sounds lame or boring, then maybe you might find some motivation from considering it like a little break you're giving yourself for the better of your future. Because again, you are so young. In other words, I'm going to take 5 years and not drink anything or something like that. I'm not saying you have to do that prescriptively, but I'm just giving you an example and saying like, I'm not going to drink until I'm doing what it is I want to do. And then I'll try again. If I feel like I want to, I'll let myself have a drink. But I wonder how much different it would feel for you drinking. In other words, I wonder how different it would feel drinking, feeling satisfied with what you're doing for work versus feeling super stressed about it. I wonder if you might have a different response to it. Maybe it is a different response, maybe not. Maybe alcoholism runs in your blood, in your family bloodline. Maybe it's like a bloodline thing. Like maybe you should just avoid drinking. But my point is like, I'm trying to give you some baby steps towards letting the alcohol go and funneling your energy into something more productive without it being a huge bummer. I don't know if it makes sense what I'm saying.
No, it does. Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Is your therapist helpful in this way? You like your therapist? I know you've only had 2 sessions, but I think you said it's a she. Is she helpful?
Yeah. I don't know yet. I enjoy talking with her. I've never really been to like therapy before. She's like the first counselor I've had, so I don't have like a good way to judge. But I do enjoy talking with. I don't know. I feel like she's still kind of like trying to understand me, and
Right.
yeah, I don't. I'm not sure yet. Like I don't know how to gauge it, but
Well, you got a lot of life to live. You're young. You're in your 20s. You got your whole life ahead of you. You got, that makes me sound like such an old fart when I say that. You got your whole life ahead of you. It's for real though. Like you really do. Like you're brimming with opportunity and potential, and you've got a real conundrum. You're trying to figure out how to let the alcohol go in your evenings, and it must be hard because you're coming home from work at night and you wanna cut loose and relax. I understand that, especially if you don't love what it is that you're doing with your days. But your days might not be exciting for a while. Your days might be a means to an end of studying and training yourself for the actual problems you do want to solve. In other words, your days might be spent just so you can make money, so that at night you can figure out the problems that do interest you, so that you can spend the rest of your life, so that later on in life your days can be enjoyable. So your days are an investment right now into your evenings, where you can prepare for the future, so that later on your days can be much more carved around your interests and your propensities and your skills, and what a beautiful life that could be. If you're, 5-10 years from now, imagine if you're a driven person and your dad sounds like an entrepreneur, that's probably in you to be an enterprising individual. So it wouldn't surprise me if you do become some kind of business owner, some kind of entrepreneur. Doesn't sound like it's going to be selling insurance, but if you can spend your days now setting yourself up financially to study in the way that you want to study and figuring out what it is you want to actually spend the rest of your life doing, then 5-10 years from now, you could have your own business solving problems you actually enjoy solving. And then at that point, your evenings become like the best reward possible, because then your evenings aren't spent drinking all night and watching TV. Your evenings become their own opportunities for hanging out with friends and going out and doing things you love. Like, I really do believe that where you are right now is a really pivotal moment, because you've got a lot on your plate. But if you can manage it all in a good, healthy way, you'll be much better off later on. And not only will your evenings be better later on, because you won't be spending them drinking to drown the bad feelings or the stress, but your days will be that much better. And that's the picture I'm trying to paint for you.
It makes a lot of sense. The way you put it is, I'm investing in myself right now by learning who I want to be, and then, like you said, 5-10 years down the road, I'm enjoying the return of investment.
That's right.
Of the work I put in.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
Cool. Great. I'm really glad you called in tonight.
Yeah, no, I am too. For sure. The last question that I would have is, because everybody deals with stress in different ways, but whenever I am dealing with stress and anxiety, does anyone have, and I know you're very clear not to be a therapist or anything like that, but do you have any tips with dealing anxiety in the moment?
What kind of anxiety are you talking about?
Just like racing thoughts and just like in your head too much and overthinking. Do you have any advice for that?
Yeah. Chat, light us up with your favorite anxiety practices. I'll certainly give you my own. I would first ask, is this like a chronic thing? Like, do you have chronic anxiety, or is it just like these punctuated moments, or is it anxiety that pop up randomly, or is it all the time?
No, yeah. I don't know what chronic anxiety is, but it just pops up every now and then. I'll just get in my head and start thinking, and then that leads to overthinking.
If it's every now and then, chronic just means all the time. If it's every now and then instead of all the time, I would say, I would recommend the 4-7-8 breathing technique, I believe it's called. I can't remember the actual name of it. I believe it's 4-7-8. The reason I can't remember the name of it is because I do what's called a 5-5-5, which is just something I made up, which is a variation of it, which will not Google. If you Google 5-5-5 breathing technique, nothing will come up probably, because I think I made it up. It's easier to remember than 4-7-8. I'm pretty sure the 4-7-8 breathing technique is what it's called, but if you Google it, I'm sure you'll find it. It's basically, you breathe in. I'll do it for you here. You breathe in it's basically in through your nose, 4 seconds, very somewhat normal inhale for 4 seconds. You hold it for 7 seconds, and then you let it out through your mouth for 8 seconds, a very slow inhale. And the point is to go as deep as you can and as slow as it's a slow breathing technique. So again, it's in by nose, out by mouth, 4-7-8, and you hold it for 7 seconds. So it sounds a little bit like this. And I usually follow my heartbeats instead of counting, because if your thoughts are racing, and then this is where the exhale would come when I'm talking. So that was a horrible demonstration. But usually I'll feel my heartbeats instead of counting to 7. I'll hold my breath for 7 heartbeats. Because if your thoughts are racing, you might count a little faster than is normal. So I'll usually breathe in by nose for 4 seconds, hold for 7 heartbeats, and then exhale for a long 8 seconds. And the point is, and you do it like 10 times. And it sounds like hocus pocus, but you'd actually be amazed how much better you feel after doing that. Again, I do it 5-5-5, but 4-7-8, 5-5-5, it all basically evens out. You can do it however you want, but the point is just to take some really deep, slow breaths. The most important thing is in by nose, out by mouth, and do it slow and deep.
Okay. Yeah, okay, I'll definitely give that a try. And
the chat's got some different ideas that may or may not be helpful. There's too many for me to highlight one. Okay. But I hope this has been a good call. I'm wishing you the best. You're young. You got your whole life ahead of you. Be encouraged. Be inspired. Be excited. And I'm wishing you the best on swapping out the alcohol for some more productive things to fill your time in these evenings where you're trying to figure out what it is you want to do with your life. I'm excited to hear a good update from you. I believe we will. I hear it in your voice. I'm sensing we're going to get a good update from you.
Yeah, I definitely. The Discord is where I do that, right?
Yeah, you can do it in the Discord, or you can call back here anytime. If you have more you want to talk about, call again anytime.
Okay. All right, man. Well, I do appreciate what you're doing here. Obviously it's helping a bunch of people. So, it really is cool what you're doing, and thanks for your time. I really do appreciate it.
I appreciate you. Thanks for calling, my friend. Take care, and wishing you the best. Good night.
Yeah, thanks. Good night.
All right, guys. Another beautiful stream. So good to be back home doing this with all the equipment that's necessary. I felt so naked doing this in LA with nothing. It's good to know that we could do it. It actually was a nice feeling knowing that if we need to take callers while traveling, that we can do it with little to no equipment. But it's much better this way. I feel much better doing it this way. And a great reintroduction to the norm on this channel. Quick reminder, we are doing a stream again tomorrow. We usually don't do a Friday stream because it's not, in my experience, the best day to do a live stream, but because we missed the prank call stream on Wednesday, we're making it up, and we have some prank calls lined up for tomorrow, and we have a surprise for tomorrow. In fact, we have 1.5 surprises for tomorrow. I'll say that. We have one, it's not quite 2 surprises for the prank call stream tomorrow, but we have 1.5 surprises. So you won't want to miss it. It'll be fun. And I always look forward to these streams. Thanks so much to all of you for hearing out the callers and for all the suggestions. The chat is an invaluable resource for the callers after the calls, so thank you guys for including your thoughts. Huge shout out to our mods. Tonight we had Offcore, Mr. Game & Watch, Deanna Krebs, and who else? I think Easy was here earlier. Pretty sure Easy Cheesy was here. I don't see him in... Maybe he left early tonight. Jake Cooper. We had Jake Cooper and... I'm going to say Easy Cheesy because he's here. Yeah, Easy Cheesy was here. Those were our mods. Mods, you're awesome. Thanks for keeping the chat clean. And I always love these anonymous live streams. I will see you guys here on Sunday. We do these streams on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays at 9 p.m. Central. That's 10 p.m. Eastern and 7 p.m. Pacific. And I'll see you guys tomorrow for the opposite of this. Today we were creating safe places for people to be real, and tomorrow we'll be harassing them. Quite a dynamic range we've got going on this channel, but it's all in good fun. It's all in good fun and good spirits. All right, guys, have a great night. I'll see you tomorrow. Good night.